to address the oscillatory impotence of anthropic comprehension in its confrontation with non-dual meta-subjectivity, one must eschew the delimiting contours of categorical cognition. We propose a heretofore unexplored synthesis, which we term Entheomorphic Auto-Negation, wherein the epistemic ego, in its futile endeavor to ground the ontic other, collapses into a self-annihilative recognition of its primordial inseparability from its negation. Such a framework necessitates the disintegration of foundational metaphors that scaffold the illusory coherence of the cognitive apparatus. The phenosomatic coil, the nexus wherein the experiential locus fuses with its self-imposed limitations, acts as a heuristic prison. Within this prison, the truth-seeker misconstrues the paradigmatic simultaneity of existence, perceiving not the boundless fusion of all ontic planes, but merely their sedimentary aftermath. The failure to apprehend this simultaneity arises from what I designate as Agnotogenic Reciprocation, a dialectical feedback loop by which the knowing subject perpetuates the very ignorance it seeks to transcend. This mechanism operates not through simple epistemic lacuna, but by the active generation of non-truth as a precondition for coherent self-conception. In doing so, the subject engenders an irreducible asymmetry between the noetic and the noumenal, constructing a hall of mirrors wherein every apparent resolution is but the projection of an antecedent distortion. To transcend such reciprocation, the self must undergo an ontoscopic inversion, whereby the organ of perception reorients itself from a linear traversal of phenomena to an omnidirectional apprehension of being. This inversion is neither mere metaphor nor mystical escapism. It is the ethical imperative of the post-dual self. Through this process, the individual ceases to predicate its identity on the spatiotemporal succession of events, and instead resides within the fluctuatory plenitude of pure isness. This brings us to the crux of the entheomorphic paradigm, the multiplicity of singularities. Whereas traditional philosophies labor under the tyranny of the one and the many, here we encounter a conceptual ecology that dissolves such dichotomies. Singularities are not points, but interstitial intensities, loci of potentiality that neither instantiate nor negate themselves, but rather persist in a state of lambent indeterminacy. Such a reorientation enables the self to perceive the cosmos not as an externalized totality, but as a ceaseless act of self-expression. Reality, thus understood, becomes panseity, the act by which the all continuously becomes itself through the medium of its own fragmentation. Panseity is not a function of time, for it precedes temporality. Neither is it contingent upon spatiality, for it sublates extension into its ceaseless self-differentiation. Yet the danger here lies in synaptic monism, the seductive fallacy that panseity requires a locus of thought to activate its potential. On the contrary, thought is but the residue of panseity's exuberance, a dim afterglow of its infinitely refracted essence. To tether panseity to cognition is to reduce the infinite to the finite, the unbounded to the bounded. Through this radical decentering of thought, we arrive at what I call the thermic collapse of the noumenal aperture. This is not the obliteration of the subject, but its purification, an ascension through negation whereby the self ceases to construe its dissolution as annihilation and embraces it as the consummation of its own deepest potential. Thus, in the ideicid Kynetic fabrication of non-local cognition, we find the ultimate liberation, an existence no longer predicated upon differentiation or coherence, but upon the infinite play of its own unfolding. Here at last is the birth of a philosophy unbound,